Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth, and I am pleased to be joined by a new uh, part of the family, Willie Epting Jr. From Shakeback Media Group. And Willie, why don't you give the audience an opportunity to go out there and let everybody know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, first and foremost, man, I appreciate you guys letting me come on and be a part of this. I'm always excited to talk sports, life, whatever, with people from anywhere, any walk. I am the creator and CEO of the Shakeback Media Group LLC, based out of the Dallas area. We have been in business now for about maybe 7 months, I want to say. I lead co-host a myriad of shows on the group or in the group, wanting to include the Shakeback Sports Show, which is a sports show that's geared to all of the sports. It's on the BGC Sports Network, based here in Arlington, Texas. That show airs Saturday and Sunday, 12 o'clock p.m. and a.m., and then 6 o'clock p.m. and a.m. Central Time on BGC Sports Network 1, and then on BGC Sports Network 2 at the 1s and 7s around the clock. All those times are Central. Also have a podcast. It's called the Ballers Report Podcast. That's on the Warzone Sports Network out of California. We also have the Shakeback Sports OT, which is a podcast that allows us to talk about anything that we do not get to during the regular show. I have the hashtag Brothers of Baseball. That show was created by myself and with my brother Donnie Epting, who is my former but yet future co-host. He'll be coming back soon. I've already spoken into existence. That one airs on the network, the BGC Sports Network, 12s and 6s and 1s and 7s. Monday through Friday, there's a new project out right now. It is actually playing on BGC SN2. And then we also have the hashtag Family of Baseball Extra Frames podcast. And again, that's the project that we do whenever we don't get to everything that we want to get to during the regular show. That's with myself, Natalie Turk, who's in Cleveland, Ohio, Mike Martinez, who's in New York. I have Marshawn Power. Sometimes he contributes. He's also in Cleveland, along with Rachel Hill, who's in Cleveland as well. And then my wife and I, we are certified life coaches, and we have a new podcast. It's called Don't Jump. That is the foundation of it is mental health awareness and all of the things that go along with that.
Very good. Well, you know what? I had the good fortune of meeting Willie on Twitter, and just so you know, for a lot of you folks out there, the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio and also the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. And Willie has been kind enough to share our content on Twitter for us, and we can't thank you enough. We also have a comment in the section from Free Spirit Outreach Incorporated saying, "Blessings, guys." Well, you know what, Free Spirit Outreach Incorporated, blessings back at you. Well, tonight's theme here, just to let you know who the crew is, we got Greg Fuchs, welcome back, writes for us.
Glad to be here.
And of course, JB Ellis. Every Wednesday night, we have a date, unless I have something I really have to do, but we have a date, right, JB?
Sounds good to me.
And JB does a wonderful job in promoting our content as well. So with that said, just give you an overview of the broadcast tonight. We'll be talking about the underwhelming quarterbacks of the 2022 NFL draft. And we've talked about a lot of quarterbacks throughout the course of the draft process, and we have 6 of them that we're going to really narrow down on tonight. With that said, the first one we're going to lead off with, since I did cover the Marlins and the Arizona Diamondbacks today, I have to use baseball terminology leading off. Not a good result for the Marlins, by the way. They lose 8-7. For the Diamondbacks, another story. All I can say is I made it through that Miami traffic back, so that's good enough, and that's why we're doing this tonight. But the first quarterback we're going to talk about is going to be Malik Willis, drafted by Tennessee in the 3rd round. The Titans actually traded up to get him. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions in a 19-16 divisional loss to Cincinnati, and he obviously felt like a little bit of a deep scar, and he felt that he was in a dark place going to therapy for a while. But he doesn't actually think he has to mentor Malik Willis. No, you probably don't. If you play well enough, Ryan, okay, then maybe Malik Willis sits on the bench for a little while, and you don't have to do anything. But, the Titans decided to draft Malik Willis. So I was kind of surprised that they did, of all people. But you never know. Quarterbacks are what they are. I believe Ryan Tannehill's a free agent after next year as well. So there's nothing wrong with having a backup plan. So since we have the new kid on the block, we'll have Willie talking about Willis. Okay, what are your thoughts, Willie, about the Malik Willis and the Tennessee Titans?
What you talking about, Willis? No, I'm just joking.
I know where
Nah.
that was from.
From all accounts and from the tape that I've watched of this young man, he by far is the most athletic quarterback in this class. He obviously has a strong arm. He kind of reminds me of Dante Culpepper with a little bit more mobility. His arm is good. He can make every throw. He can extend plays. Not very polished, and that's the only or the biggest knock that's on him at this point. I think Tennessee will be in a position to where they can get this kid groomed and developed, ultimately taking over for Tannehill or whoever else is going to be there. Tannehill, I think he has reached his peak. He's given us the best that he's going to give us. We've seen the best of him. But as far as Willis goes, I mean, the sky's the limit. He just needs to get in there and do his thing as far as learning the playbook, making sure that he absorbs all of the information that he can, and let his athleticism go out there and prove to the world that he is worthy of this shot. Now, we all thought that, or most of us thought that he was going to be one of the first 2 or 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round. And as we know now, only one quarterback went in the first round. Of course, that was Pickett from the University of Pittsburgh going to the Steelers. But in terms of what Willis can bring to the table, like I said, he reminds me a little bit of Dante Culpepper, just a little bit more athletic and a lot more mobile as far as his skill set goes. And with the NFL being the way that it is at this point, unlike it was when Culpepper was drafted, they're implementing, as we see, a lot of college football concepts in the NFL. You have these athletic quarterbacks that can throw the ball. It's like when you're recruited out of high school and they label you as either a pocket passer or a scrambler or a balanced quarterback. Well, I think Malik Willis would fall into that balanced quarterback category. He just needs to get his arm, work on his accuracy a little bit more, become a little bit more polished. And from what I can tell, he's not bad at reading defenses, which is a little bit important if you're going to play in the NFL level.
Well, if anybody knows a little bit about Ryan Tannehill, Greg Fuchs does. One time the guy did play here with the Miami Dolphins, I believe. What was it? Mike Sherman drafted him. And, of course, Ryan Tannehill has done a good job, though, up in Tennessee. Got a fresh start up there. So, but on point, Greg, what are your thoughts about Malik Willis with the Titans?
Well, the thing that amazed me about Willis is probably the most analyzed event in all of sports is the NFL draft. I mean, 2023 mock drafts are already out there. All right. And then the most analyzed position is the quarterback position. And virtually every expert, I didn't see any mock draft that didn't have Willis in the first round, and probably half of them had him in the top 10 or the top 15. So to see him drop, he went 86th overall was a shocker. Now, I got to admit, I have never seen Willis play. I've read the same thing most people have. Great legs, great arm, little bit. That sounds an awful lot like Trey Lance, who went 3rd overall in the draft last year. But I was shocked to see him go so late. I think Tennessee's a good landing spot for them. They got a good head coach. He can sit behind Tannehill for a year or two and learn. So I think Willis is going to eventually get an opportunity. Like some of these quarterbacks, he might have been better off spending another year in college. But it is what it is. He's on an NFL roster. He's going to get a chance to learn. And you're always just one play away from being in that starting lineup.
Well, Hugh Freeze runs a pretty good program over at Liberty. So you know what? You never know. I mean, in my opinion, Hugh Freeze is pretty good with quarterbacks. But, we'll definitely see how it plays out, right, JB Ellis?
Yeah, I mean, first going with Tannehill's comments afterwards that, I don't have to mentor this young kid. I kind of agree with Tannehill on that. He's not responsible to mentor, someone that's going to want to take his position. That's first off. Secondly, the fact that Willis fell to the 3rd round was shocking. I was watching, the first round, didn't see his name come up. Saw Pickett get drafted first, which I'm sure we'll get into in a couple of minutes. And I'm thinking, my team's got Daniel Jones. We didn't pick up his 5th-year option. And we're getting later in this draft. I know none of these guys are guys that you're their first-round talent in a normal year. But now's a good chance to take a flyer on one of these guys. So I think Tennessee made a great choice. And, I think with Tannehill there, he'll learn the system, and he'll be the starter there probably in a year or two. So, I think it's a good move for him, and I like the pick.
Yeah, well, I think what's good about the whole pick is, number one, Willis isn't being expected to do a whole lot for a year or two anyways, And if a quarterback's as good as he is, you don't worry about who's your backup. Just go out there and play well. I mean, I know Aaron Rodgers got bothered because they drafted Jordan Love, and all Rodgers is keep Love on the bench because he's playing well. But people have to understand, and very few people really, they do a lot of overreacting, is heaven forbid, your starter goes down, you better make sure your backup is prepared so you don't lose an entire season. And that's the one thing that tends to get overlooked in all of it. But I think that Malik Willis falling into Tennessee's lap is the reason why the Titans traded up in the first place to get him. Now, of course, Willie, you talked about Kenny Pickett. Why don't we go on to Kenny Pickett? The Pittsburgh Steelers did not want to repeat where they let a guy by the name of Dan Marino get away in their hometown. So what do? You draft Kenny Pickett, who, by the way, fell to number 20, who, by the way, like the New England Patriots, who wanted Mac Jones, fell there. They didn't have to go ahead and trade up to get him. Things worked out pretty well for Kenny Pickett. So, Mr. Epting, okay, I'll let you take over the handoff from me about why Kenny Pickett was a good choice for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, let me say this first about the Steelers in this pick. When it happened, that told me one thing, that there is no way that the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, and that brain trust is even 80% sold on Mitchell Trubisky. I think Kenny Pickett, he is probably the most ready to play right now because he played 17 years at the University of Pittsburgh, so he's a 24-year-old quarterback and picked in the first round. His moxie, his poise, he's sneakily athletic, and he can just get the job done. He's not going to overwhelm you with his arm talent, but his smarts and his ability to pick up and read defenses, I think, is going to be a really, really critical piece for him. And the fact that he is a little bit more athletic than people give him credit for, that's going to be surprising for some folks as well. They're going to have to tailor this system around him. He ain't Ben Roethlisberger. He's not nearly as big as Ben. Doesn't have the arm. He's a lot more mobile than Ben. But we'll see if he's able to take the punishment. But then again, you may not have to with the rules in the NFL this day, because you can just breathe on the quarterback and you're going to get thrown out of the game. But I think that for Pickett, and I don't know if the Steelers were really thinking about Dan Marino and the fact that they let him get out of the door. They probably know that this kid is not Dan Marino. But I do like the pick because if you can have all that experience in a Power 5 conference the way that he did and has, and then you go to a team like the Steelers, who is one of the better franchises, not just in the NFL, but really in sports, period. I mean, for God's sakes, they've only had, 2 head coaches in the history of the franchise? So when you go there and then you have Mike Tomlin, who is going to get everything out of you that he can, that's a win-win situation. They're not going to throw him in there, I don't believe, unless Trubisky is just so bad to where they have to throw him in there, and I don't know if they're going to do that.
Well, Willie, nobody's saying they're thinking about Dan Marino, but the fact he's a local kid and he happens to be pretty good. I believe he threw, over 40-some touchdowns last
43,
year.
I think it was.
Right, so he threw over 40 touchdowns. So nobody's going to sit here and say that the ghost of Dan Marino in 1983 was arguably the best quarterback class on the planet, is there, but don't think it's not entering their mind that you have a local kid who, by the way, is pretty good. Yeah. And I don't care if the gas prices are $7 a gallon, the cost to go from the Pittsburgh Panthers part of the building to the Pittsburgh Steelers is probably a piece of Pumas, Nikes, or Converse All-Stars to get over there. So it's not like you had to go very far to fly and scout this kid. But I'm with you all the way. But he happens to be local, and he happens to be pretty good. And if you could go from Roethlisberger to Pickett, life isn't that bad anymore, less than you had Peyton Manning over to Andrew Luck, Rodgers over to Favre. You have that bridge isn't too far. And yes, every now and then, folks, I do watch a movie because I did happen to see A Bridge Too Far. for a lot of you folks who say he don't watch them, well, that's one of them, but I won't admit that openly, except when the analogy is appropriate. So no, we're not going to sit there and say that Dan Marino's walking in that door, Mr. Epting, but don't think in a million years it doesn't go ahead and enter their mind that, hey, the local kid happens to be pretty good. And you know what? Not bad. Okay. So with that said, JB Ellis, okay, is there anything I left out of this? And if there is, go ahead, let me know.
Listen, I love the pick. Tomlin is a phenomenal coach, top 2 or 3 in the game. You know, he gets the most out of everybody. They had a guy called Rudolph who was horrible. And when they finished that year, it hasn't had a losing record. And they had Rudolph playing quarterback. You know, they took a shot at Trubisky. I don't think it's that they don't think Trubisky is going to start this year. I just don't think that they think that that's the long-term answer for them. Mm-hmm. So you take a shot at a guy like Pickett. He's a local guy. It's a good pick to have there. If he does well, which Tomlin gets the most out of everybody, it's a score. It's a local guy. It's going to be a great publicity story. If he doesn't do well, it was one pick. It's not going to kill them. Tomlin's still going to get the team in playoff contention. The Steelers are probably the most consistent franchise in the NFL. You know what they're going to do every year. They don't let you down. They're always in the thick of everything, always in the playoff hunt. I can't be upset with this pick at all.
Well, let me tell you this, okay? Matt Flynn signed a contract with Seattle Seahawks, and let's not forget that Russell Wilson kind of like got drafted in the 3rd round. And do I need to tell a lot of you NFL people how that really worked out? No. Okay. So, because it worked out right, Greg?
Excuse me. Yeah. I mean, I am a Kenny Pickett fan. I've mentioned that before in some podcasts. I've seen him play several times. He may not do anything great. He seems to do most stuff very well, though. When I watch him play, he just seems like an NFL quarterback. Seems to have a feel for the game. And one thing about him that you probably can't say about any other quarterback drafted in the last 10 years, he was a 4-year starter. Most quarterbacks leave college a year early. Maybe he didn't start as a freshman. 4-year starter. He's going to hit the ground running. And I think, to me, he's the odds-on favorite to start day 1 in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
That's interesting. Hey, listen, Mitchell Trubisky, you know what? I'm not totally writing him off. What's it going to matter if he starts for so many games? See what you've got. You got a little bit of money invested in the guy. But the fact that and remember, you signed Mitchell Trubisky knowing you didn't have Kenny Pickett in your pocket either. So, again, that's what the open competition is going to be during training camp. And if for some reason Pickett's a starter from day 1, game 1, so more power to him. But I'm not saying anything derogatory about Mitchell Trubisky. You know, they had confidence in that signing when they brought him on board. And, of course, don't forget that he went ahead and worked under Brian Dable and Josh Allen. Don't you think they're going to take that into consideration as well? But I can tell you right now, it is a desirable quarterback situation. Like you guys say, when you go to Chuck Noll, to Bill Cowher, to Mike Tomlin, you've only had 3 coaches in about 9 million years. How many millennials have been born, okay, in the time that they happen to have coaches? 3, by the way, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and if I really want to get sarcastic about 1, 2, 3, since I'm not a Spanish guy, I can say uno, dos, tres, and that's all the Spanish I know. But at least I know the Pittsburgh Steelers are making me look good. Uno, dos, tres is all the Spanish I know, and that means 1, 2, 3 Pittsburgh coaches. And I say no more. No, but what I will say is, let's go to the Corral. Matt Corral, Carolina Panthers round 3, eliminated a Baker Mayfield sighting. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. I know what he does at Florida Atlantic. Lane Kiffin's a pretty good coach. We saw what he did with, if you could win with the Florida Atlantic University Owls, you're doing pretty good. No disrespect to the Owls, but Lane Kiffin did a pretty good coaching job right up the road in Boca Raton. With that said, I don't believe that the Carolina Panthers are going to go ahead and get Baker Mayfield. And I think the Matt Corral pick wasn't too bad. So, all right, I'm going to go back to you on this again, Willie.
Well, Matt Corral is, number one, he's a fiery competitor. He did injure that ankle in the Sugar Bowl at the end of last year. And when I saw the injury, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope his career is going to be okay. He played in the SEC. And if you can succeed in the SEC, to me, that gives you a more than halfway decent shot to at least be very productive in the NFL. Now, the Carolina Panthers quarterback room consists of Sam Darnold, Matt and PJ Walker, who was excellent in the XFL before it actually succumbed due to the pandemic, and they are on their way back. But I think Matt Corral, if he can really grasp the playbook, okay, I wouldn't. Sam Darnold's probably not the best quarterback to learn from, other than what not to do. But their situation in Carolina, Matt Rule is on the hot seat, and I don't know if Matt or Sam or PJ is going to be enough there that's going to save his job. Now, anything that happens, and then I heard y'all talking about Joey Harrington for the Detroit Lions, the kid that was drafted second overall, I believe it was, from Oregon, about whether he was a bust or not. Yeah, and I get it. You know, he did have a carousel of coaches, and the way that it's setting up in Carolina with Corral, that could be the same thing that's happening to him, specifically and especially if he gets, or if Rule is actually fired by the end of the year, and then you're gonna have to go through that thing again where, well, who's gonna be the new coach? Well, we didn't draft him. Who's gonna be the new, all those different things. So his talent is good enough. I'm just worried about that situation in Carolina.
Yeah, that's a good point, coaching. I'm glad you brought up Joey Harrington. I'll still stand by what I say. I don't feel he was a bust. Now, when you go through offensive coordinators and head coaches right one after another, I don't care what anybody says. You want to debate me? Go ahead, debate me. Southwardtribune@gmail.com. Give me your 2 cents, and I'm still going to write you back and say Joey Harrington, in my opinion, wasn't a bust. But I'm glad that you brought that up. All right, Greg Fuchs. Okay, well, your thoughts about Matt Corral? Well, Greg?
Yeah, Matt Corral, I saw him play a few times in college. Very athletic, got a good arm. One of those guys you say, here's a really good college quarterback. Is it going to translate to the pros? I think one thing held against Corral and most of the quarterbacks this year, other than Pickett, who is 6'3", is their size. They're all 6 feet, 6'1". Now, I know it's becoming more of a common thing these days. Not everyone is 6'5" like a Josh Allen. But I think that was held against everyone. And you look at these guys playing college, they can move the ball. College systems are much more similar to NFL systems these days. So I think Corral, I mean, I'm not a big Sam Darnold fan. So I think he's going to get his opportunity sooner than later in Carolina.
Well, the only thing I'll say about Ole Miss, it's not like you're looking at Georgia and Alabama here. You know, Ole Miss has usually been on the lower echelon of the SEC. I'm not saying it's a bad university, but there's other ones that are certainly much higher level than Ole Miss. And if you can win an Ole Miss and you can produce quarterbacks, it won't take a whole awful lot of time. I believe wasn't one of the Mannings on Ole Miss as well?
Yeah,
Eli Manning. So, you know, I mean, Ole Miss is a very good quality, reputable school. And I think that, you know, I'd like to see Matt Corral do well, and he's in a good spot in Carolina. And I'm going to go back to what you said, Willie. Again, that coaching situation could be a very tough situation if Matt Rule doesn't last a whole lot longer. So, JB, you know, what are your thoughts about Matt Corral?
You know, when you're picking in the third round and you have a lot of needs and you could get a quarterback that you think is the guy for you, you know, it's worth taking a shot. I have no issues with where any of these quarterbacks ended up in this draft. You know, when you're looking at it, none of these guys are top 10 talent. Nobody made that bonehead move where they took somebody too early. You know, when you're in the third round and you got Sam Darnold as your starter, take a shot. If you like Corral and you think he could be the guy, go after him. You know, the Chargers a couple of years ago took Herbert. He wasn't the top-rated quarterback. He was the third one picked in that class. Nobody looked at him like he was going to be great. Came out his rookie year, had the best stats out of the three rookies out of that year. And, you know, so it's not an exact science. You have to believe in the guy you picked. You have to think he's the most coachable. You have to hope he went to a good enough school where he's going to learn the system and translate into the NFL. The guy's from the SEC, Ole Miss, so that's good quality to start. If you think he could be your guy and you don't have to force him in a game if he's not ready and he can learn the system, not a bad move in the third round. Not at all.
Well, a few people got to understand Russell Wilson was picked in the third round out of the University of Wisconsin. And prior to that, I believe it was with NC State. So third round picks aren't the worst things that are on the planet at all. So, all right, well, we'll go to Sam Thurston Howell. No, just kidding with you. I had to throw a Gilligan reference out there. Although Chris Berman would love me for this to know. Sam Thurston Howell the third, no, Sam Howell. Washington Commanders, or whatever the Washington what. We once did a show on that, right, JB? The Washington what. I still haven't forgotten to write that article on it. It was picked in the fifth round. And of course, I think he could be the real sleeper in this pick. And beware Carson Wentz. Okay, you have a Howell looking over your shoulder. No, again, he's not getting Thurston Howell third number. I can't get off the Howell kick, Willie. I can't do it. But and I don't think that Carson Wentz will either. But Carson, you're Morris even had 9 lives. You're on your third. So, but there is a Sam Howell sighting in Washington. And we don't know what Dan Snyder's going to do with all the finances and how he manipulates them. Oh, I'm picking on the Washington team today, whatever they call it. So with that said, how do you think Sam Howell's going to fit in the nation's capital?
You know what? You may be on to something by saying that he may be the sleeper of this draft, because how much confidence do we really have in Carson Wentz? Okay. Taylor Heineke, he is a backup in every sense of the word. He can come in and inject some life into a lineup, but he's not going to win you 6-7 games in a row, and he's not going to really take you to the playoffs. Sam Howell, this team has a lot of weapons. Antonio Gibson in the backfield, J.D. McKissick is there. Terry McLaurin is one of the better. I would say he's a top 16, 17 wide receiver. He's never really had that quarterback that can get him the ball with consistency, but he's still a very, very good player and a difficult cover. They have a great tight end in Logan Thomas. They got Jahan Dotson in the draft. Curtis Samuel is a pretty good slot receiver, and they got Cam Sims out of my old high school in Louisiana. I think that Sam Howell, he could go from third on the depth chart to number 1 very easily, and it would not surprise me. And he could actually stay at third on the depth chart, and it would not surprise me. I think a lot of this is going to boil down to the leadership or lack thereof. I think Carson Wentz needs to go and read some leadership books so he can get back to being the quarterback that actually could have won the MVP back in 2017 before he tore his knee up in LA against the Rams. So this is an interesting question, because I wouldn't be surprised at some point if he is QB1, but I would not be surprised if he stayed at QB3.
Well, the one thing I will tell you this, okay, is a guy that goes ahead to me comes to the University of North Carolina. I'm trying to go out there and figure out how many UNC quarterbacks have actually made it. So the way I look at it is again, I do believe this could be a sleeper pick. I really, really do. And, to me, it's a very intriguing one, and again, we're always looking for sleeper picks. And when you also wonder why a guy goes ahead and drops to the fifth round, there's got to be reasons why. And I'm still a little bit mind boggled, because I know, and I don't take a lot of stock in mock drafts. Okay. Everybody's talking about the fact that Howell, to me, should have been in the second or third round, but how did he get to number 5? What is it that something saw people out there, to me, that enabled him to drop to the fifth round? That, to me, just blows my mind. Right, Greg?
Yeah, I was surprised to see him drop that far. He's got a good opportunity in Washington, though. It doesn't have to start right away. Like, he's probably the third string quarterback, as you said. Since he was in the ACC, I saw him play several times. I was impressed by him. His senior year was not as good as his junior year, but I'm not sure if that had as much to do with him as it did the talent around him, because that North Carolina offense his junior year was loaded. Had the 2 running backs, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, a couple excellent wide receivers, great offensive line. So it wasn't surprising to see him go a little downhill this past season. But I think the talent is still there. I as a Hurricane fan, I was always nervous playing against him. So I think, like I said, good situation for him. He's going to get an opportunity somewhere along the line in the next year or two.
Well, Ron Rivera is a heck of a coach. Well, I don't know what he can do. as a coach. Cam Newton turned out pretty well. I'm still to this day I wonder why Cam Newton never did land with Ron Rivera out of Washington. We'll never know. Doesn't really matter anyways. We'll see if Cam Newton lands anywhere. But Sam Howell, Washington, JB. How do you fathomize that? And do you think he's going to see the field in year 1 or 2?
Probably. I mean, Washington, just in general, even after they brought in Rivera, is just a bad situation. I mean, their defense has taken leaps and bounds. Their offense, they have some good pieces to the puzzle. Howell fell down. They got him in the 5th round, which is great value. That's the one thing I saw in this draft, especially with the quarterbacks. They kept falling, and once again, if Rivera liked Howell and this was his guy, he's a 2nd, 3rd round projection, and you can get him in the 5th round, and you now have a guy you can bring for a year or 2 to become your backup, and you're not stuck with a Carson Wentz guy who's going to fall apart when the chips are down. I'm doing it all day. I need somebody that I want to be my future, especially in Washington when I know I have Wentz. So great value pick. If he turns out to be something good, it's a score. He's a 5th round pick. 5th round picks aren't worth that much. You may every once in a while you're going to hit a 5th round pick and it's going to be a superstar. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick, so you never know. If you like your guy and you can get that kind of value, it doesn't matter what school you went to. I mean, what school did Jerry Rice go to? What HBCU? I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're good, and you have the will to compete and the physical ability, you can do it. Just because there was no great quarterbacks from Carolina in the league before, that doesn't mean that this guy can't be the guy. He's got a great eye for the long ball. It's just a matter if he can learn the system, if he can come in and do what he needs to do. And Carson Wentz will make sure that he has an opportunity, because Carson Wentz is, Mr. I can't deal with any pressure. So I'm sure he'll see the field sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I don't think I'd really worry about Carson Wentz becoming insecure over a 5th round pick. All Carson has to do, Willie, is take care of business, okay? Everybody wants to know where Joe Flacco came from, University of Delaware. Somehow, some way, what about Jeff Hostetler? Didn't I believe he came from the University of Delaware. How about those?
He went to West Virginia.
Oh, that's right. Who was I thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, but I know the University of Delaware has produced some players too. In fact, but I do know that Joe Flacco went there as well. I have another guy that nobody will ever even know of, a guy by the name of Jeff Tomlow, Komlo, was a 9th round pick that the Lions picked. And the only reason why I mentioned him is because the Lions' 2 starting quarterbacks went down at the time. I'm trying to remember who they were. But you can find quarterbacks anywhere. Whether I know Hostetler, now that does ring a bell, went back to West Virginia. But I think was it Scott Brunell or Scott Bruner? It doesn't matter. These guys can come from anywhere. That's what they can. And I've seen Delaware produce them. Those Fighting Blue Hens. I'm giving you Delaware people's publicity, okay? So forget about what the name recognition. Joe Flacco is the guy, but these guys will come from anywhere. But you never know. Takes one North Carolina, Tar Heel, and to me, I think there's no doubt in my mind that Sam Howell, is all Carson Wentz has to do is take care of business. That's all he has to do, and then we'll see where Sam comes in. A lot of these guys. You need 2 or 3 good, solid quarterbacks. And, and again, you have the USFL down the road and XFL. They're all going to get playing time somewhere down the line, although who knows where these guys are going to wind up at some point, Willie.
I mean, to Carson Wentz's defense a little bit, I mean, he did not have that bad of a year last year. I mean, 27 touchdowns. I think he had 7 picks. I think that they, being the Colts, and in particular Frank Reich, really stuck his neck out for him. And then when they fell down against the Raiders in week 17 and then against the Dolphins in week 18, they put that all on him, which, you can argue whether it's fair or not fair, but for the entire year, he really wasn't that terrible. I think his leadership skills or lack thereof may have been the coup de grace for him as far as getting shipped out. And look, Washington is paying. No, No, the coaches, no, the Washington, they did pick up the entire salary for Carson Wentz. I'm thinking that they were paying a portion of it or something. But yeah, to his defense, I mean, that's what that was, in my opinion.
Yeah, by the way, I'm doing a little bit of research on Delaware quarterbacks. Did you know that Matt Nagy actually played for the University of Delaware?
Wow.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm telling you. Now you guys got me interested in this University of Delaware situation, and I think Jeff Tomlow is actually listed as one of them. So keep going there. Go ahead, Willie.
Off topic, man, real quick, because you brought that up. Do you guys know that the number one player in high school in Georgia the same year that Calvin Johnson was there was Sean McVay?
Really?
No,
Sean
wow.
McVay was the number one prospect in Georgia, and Calvin Johnson was second.
Oh, by the way,
What position was McVay?
He played quarterback.
and by the way, now that I'm on this Delaware kick, Rich Gannon also played there.
Rich Gannon, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
MVP,
There you
league
go.
MVP.
Pat Devlin. So here, look at this, folks. You got Joe Flacco's on that list. Scott Bruner. That's the guy I was looking
Scott
for.
Bruner, yeah.
Okay, well, I knew it was in the Bruner something. This is really starting to bother me about this Delaware Blue Hens thing. So, all right, Delaware.
They're a powerhouse.
What's that? But Rich Gannon, how about those guys? I'm telling you. So let me tell you, I brought all these Blue Hens up here. So yes, Sam Howell, this should give you a little bit of an indication. There's no reason why you can't earn some Thurston Howell money down the road, regardless of whether you're a Delaware Blue Hen or not. Okay, with that said, okay, we're going to segue and do a little bit of riding over to Desmond Ritter. Okay, well, another analogy. I'm on a roll today, man. and he's riding down I-85 over to Atlanta Falcons, where the round 3, all he did was win in college with the University of Cincinnati, and he'll be breathing down Marcus Mariota's back. So with that said, okay, Marcus Mariota has been known to get injured a lot. So Desmond Ritter will he see the field sooner or later, Willie?
Sooner.
Okay.
Really soon. Look, the Falcons are, I won't say clearly in rebuild mode, but Marcus Mariota obviously is going to be the bridge to whoever's next. Desmond Ritter, to me, I saw him play a couple times during the regular season, and up until they just got blasted against Alabama in the Final Four. I like this dude because he is mature. He is in command of his guys. He runs the offense like he is a second coach or like a coach on the field. He's a big kid, 6'4", 215 pounds. He can make every throw. He can actually run the ball. He may not be as athletic as Willis, who's in his class, but this dude can actually go out there and play. And I actually am a fan of his because it's just something to me about college quarterbacks that come from a small conference like this that has a chip on his shoulder. And what a better opportunity to really make your mark than with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, clearly, the Falcons are going to probably be they're going to either finish third or fourth in that division. Marcus Mariota, you can bank on him getting hurt at some point during the year, which means you're going to see Ritter in the lineup under center or in shotgun or whatever offense they're going to run. That's going to be tailor-made for his skill set.
Let me tell you this, Willie. Don't you call the University of Cincinnati a small college, pal. And I'll tell you why. They're headed to the Big 12 right now. They're working on getting there.
Big 12? The Big 12? Man.
Yeah. I know. They're on the verge of graduating to a Power 5 conference. I know we like to kick around these small. So don't sell the Cincinnati Bearcats short. They're headed to a Power 5 conference, and they earned it, okay? Luke Vittel right now, to me, could take that mayor's job hands down because the Bearcats are sitting in a good spot that they're about ready to hit Power 5 territory. And from the latest that I've actually read up on that, by the way, is that I think they're trying to get in 2023. I think they got one more year to go, and then, they're trying to negotiate that. So just a little thought, but Desmond Ritter, there's no question the quality of competition and the fact that they're a non-Power 5 school and got him into college football playoff speaks volumes there. And I'll continue to piggyback off your point, Willie. Okay, Marcus Mariota has proven that he's anything but durable. So I'm not a betting guy, okay, and I'm sure Willie, you and I could come up with all kinds of betting people on Twitter and invite them to our shows, okay. But I'm not a bettor, I'm really not. I'm too cheap to be one of those, okay. I get nervous when I lose $10 in a slot machine. So for a lot of you people that wonder about it, but I will say it right now, I would put $10 on Marcus Mariota getting hurt, and we don't wish it on you, Marcus. So don't worry about that. And yeah, Desmond Ritter will be throwing spirals for the Atlanta Falcons, right, JB Ellis?
Listen, I think this was probably the best pick of the draft. I think this guy, he's proven he can win. He took a non-Power 5 school, got them to the playoffs, had a great year. He has talent. He's a leader. He commands respect. He's going to a team that's clearly rebuilding behind a guy who consistently gets hurt. And they're just hungry for something to root for in Atlanta. They need a feel-good story. If he steps in and does what he can do after Mariota goes down, there's nothing but upside for this kid. And I think he's going to be the starter there for a while. If he has any indication of what he did in college, I think it's going to be his job for years to come.
Greg?
Yeah, I agree with both of what JB and Willie said. He's going to get an opportunity sooner than later because of Mariota's penchant for getting injured. The one thing that worries me about Ritter is he's playing for the Falcons, and not one of the best teams in the league. I'm sure he'd be much better off playing for Pittsburgh, who's got one of the best defenses, and they got Najee Harris in the backfield. So that's what Kenny Pickett's got going for him that Ritter doesn't. But Ritter, like most of these quarterbacks, they got talent.
Oops.
You just, doing it in college is different than the NFL. When you get to the NFL, a lot of it isn't about talent. It's about reading defenses and making decisions and having a good team around you.
All right, so I have a question here. It's not a sneaky Hembo question, by the way. Get up. What's the last letter of the alphabet?
I 100% agree.
Huh?
Z?
Z? Okay, good. So the last quarterback we're going to talk about, his last name starts with Z, called Bayley Zappi. Ha, 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 ha. I'm in a great mood tonight. So. Now, with that said, okay, and I don't know how the heck this guy landed with the New England Patriots. My goodness. So I'm going to tell you what I think about this one here. Okay, lands in round 4. Still don't get it. Trade bait depth, maybe. The most baffling pick, definitely. The most mind-boggling selection, definitely. We know that this guy, okay, can throw for a lot of yards. What, he has 62 touchdown passes last year? I don't know how many. I can't count that high, okay? I thought that Bailey Zapp was going to end up anywhere but New England, Willie. What? I'll let that happen.
Well, their backup is a guy by the name of Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is so old that he was there when the Patriots had the little man on the side of their helmets. So Bailey Zapp and Jarrett Stidham is in the quarterback room too. They thought they had something with him when they drafted him out of Auburn. He has not panned out. Bailey Zapp was going to move up to the number 2 role in the quarterback room for the Patriots at some point. Mac Jones is obviously he is the statue that's going to be there, and he gave us a lot last year. Whenever the Patriots decide that they need to get some skilled players on the outside that can actually threaten a defense down the field, I think Mac Jones will be a lot. We'll see the Mac Jones that we saw at Alabama more than we saw the Mac Jones of last year. But in terms of Bailey Zapp, Western Kentucky, I saw them play a couple times because they actually are in the same conference as my alma mater, ULM. And I don't think they have not one running back on their team because all they do is throw the ball. This dude threw for over 6,500 yards last year and 60 touchdowns. So they're not running the ball, and it's a spread, wide open offense, much like what we saw back in the day with Texas Tech and the Mad Hatter himself. What's his name? Oh gosh, what's the head coach's name that was out there? He went to Washington. Anyway, that's the kind of offense that they run. Real open, real high-powered, real run and shoot, just air raid all over the place. So we know the numbers that he can put up. I've seen him play maybe once or twice, but what concerns me about this is that he's only 6'1", and I understand that you don't have to be 6'5" to succeed in the NFL anymore. But what concerns me about this is that he's kind of a short quarterback. He's well built, but the competition level that he played at is going to be a concern for me.
Well, I'll tell you this, Willie. I wish I would have known you a long time ago, and I'll tell you why. Because number one, I'm on Western Kentucky's media distribution list, and I would have tagged you for every single one of those press releases on the planet. Because when I was reading them, I thought I needed to go to the eye doctor when I was looking at those numbers, and I knew what we had with Bayley Zapp, and to see that he played at the Boca Raton Bowl, and the Boca Raton Bowl tends to bring in some pretty good quarterbacks. Zach Wilson, by the way, happened to play there the year prior, and Bailey Zappi was unreal. And I believe Dan Campbell coached him over in the Senior Bowl. I was kind of surprised the Lions didn't get him. And I was actually tagging some Lions people. This might be your guy. Never quite happened that way, but but Bailey Zapp, to me, I think you're right. Okay, number one, Jared Stidham isn't going to make the first or second cut. He's going someplace. I don't see him in New England. Brian Hoyer, yeah, they do like to keep an older guy around, but how much longer they can keep him around? So, yeah, I don't know. It's still a little mind-boggling. And, again, don't forget the fact that they probably could trade him, too, if they can get some good value for a guy who, by the way, you only invested a fourth-round pick in. And if you could get a good return on your investment, you never know. But, no, I still found that when New England picked him of all teams, whether it was for whatever reason, they ended up getting – that's a wild card pick that they can pretty much turn into anything. So, Greg, what are your thoughts about Bailey Zapp? We know you wrote an article on him. So, a couple shows ago, Greg didn't know anything about Bailey Zappi. And, in fact, Greg was so mind-boggled that he works very diligently to learn about him to a point where he even writes an article on the guy.
Yeah. Scott's not going to shut up about Bailey Zappi if he starts completing some passes for New England. A guy who has that successful a career in the NCAA, most yards, most TD passes ever, even if it was in Conference USA. He still had a monster game against Michigan State, 488 yards and 4 touchdowns. He seems to have all the intangibles. He's got pocket presence, decision-making. He's accurate. What doesn't he have? He's only 6'1", average mobility. Yeah, and playing in the Conference USA is going to be held against him. But for a late fourth-round pick, this guy's got a lot of upside, and what's the worst that happens? You missed on a fourth-round pick. So as a Dolphin fan, not crazy to see him to go to New England, but unless Mac Jones gets hurt, it's going to be a while till he sees the field. Mm-hmm. But I think he'll be the backup to Mac Jones next season. I think Hoyer will still be number 2 this year.
Okay, JB, where are you going with this one?
That guy, Belichick, he has this thing about finding quarterbacks and doing things in the draft. And a fourth-round pick to him, he could get like 7 more of those by tomorrow, the way he makes trades. So you can't go wrong when a guy has 62 touchdowns and put some stats like that. I'm shocked that he wasn't picked a little bit earlier. Once again, as I'm watching the second round and the third round on Saturday, and I'm seeing no quarterbacks till like the middle of the third round, I'm like, maybe my Giants are going to take somebody. Why not? Then you start to see guys come off the board. And I'm like, all right, I don't want anybody else that's left. But, I think that's a great move by New England. Because he'll end up being a good backup. Just because he didn't play against top-tier talent, that doesn't mean that if he's coachable and he knows the system and he can learn the game, he'll be fine with putting up stats like that. He already knows how to play. So I think that's a great move.
All right, so I'm going to ask each of you one question, okay? And yes, I do like to talk a lot. Nobody ever hear me be quiet anyways, because if I did, they wouldn't be calling me the Motor City Mad Mouth. They'd call me the Motor City Mild Mouth. And no, I don't want that because I spent too much time and money trademarking Motor City Mad Mouth. I don't have to go through the process and the financial part to redo it after a while. We know if anybody knows anything about trademarking, it gets expensive. It takes a long time, so we're not going to do that. But we talked about 6 quarterbacks. Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Sam Thurston Howell III. Sorry, I got to go back to Chris Berman again. Desmond Ritter, and Bayley, Zappy. Okay, Z at the last part of the envelope, the alphabet. But Willie, of these 6 quarterbacks in this underwhelming draft, which one do you think stands out?
Oh man.
Why, you think I was going to make it easy on you? No.
Well, since you said underwhelming, then none of them stand out. No, I'm just joking.
Good comeback, by the way, Willie.
I like Malik Willis. I think he has the opportunity to really be special, particularly with what the Titans already have outside of the guy that's in front of him. They've got one of the best 3 running backs in the National Football League with King Henry. They did, of course, trade A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles, which I'm kind of mystified by that, but that's neither here nor there. I think that if you had to insert any one of these guys into the starting lineup, like right now, with what they have around him, I think he would be the only one that has the best chance, or he would be the one that has the best chance to lead their team or his team to the playoffs. Derrick Henry, they got Robert Woods over from the LA Rams. Of course, he did have the ACL tear that he's going to have to rehab from. They got Traylon Burks in the draft. Austin Hooper's a decent enough tight end when he's not dropping passes. Came over from Cleveland. Taylor Lewan is a bulldozer up front. I think Malik Willis is going to get on the field this year. And I would not be surprised at all if at some point he is actually the guy that's going to be leading them forward.
Greg?
Well, Willis has the most upside. He has the highest ceiling. I think he also has the lowest floor. I think he's the biggest risk. I think he's the only one who potentially could be a top 5 quarterback in this league. Okay. Mm-hmm. That said, like I said earlier, I'm a Kenny Pickett fan. I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in this league for the next 10 years. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, maybe top 12, top 15. In an organization like Pittsburgh, he is just built to succeed there.
JB?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tale of 3. It comes down to, is Pickett going to do well or do best with the coaching of Tomlin? Because I don't think he has the most talent. I think Willis has the best opportunity with who's around him. And I think Ritter has the chance to make the most out of nothing in Atlanta because he's going to get the best opportunity to show how much talent he has. So, I could see any of the 3 of them succeeding in their situations, but it's hard to pick. I like Ritter, I think, the most out of all 3 in Atlanta.
All right, and you know what? I have to stay consistent. I'm going with Bailey Zapp anyways. There's something about this whole thing.
What a shocker.
I don't know. I had to. I've got too much time and energy into Bailey Zappi. Now, I don't know if he's going to do it in New England, but I still think that Bailey, to me, would be the guy that I would tend to lean on. So, but it's good. We all have different reasons for doing it, and I think that's why I decided to do this, to get everybody's feel about where we're at. So I'm drinking the Zappy Kool-Aid, okay, because I really do believe at some point or another that he's going to see the field, and when he sees it well, there's a feeling about this pick, and I don't know why, that I'm going to go with Bailey Zappe. So with that said, there you have it, folks. We're all on record about who we think is going to be the ultimate quarterback of this group. Now, I will say this, for a lot of the teams that didn't draft quarterbacks like these other teams did, maybe they just didn't feel that they wanted to take a chance on any of these 6 guys, knowing that the 2023 class is going to be a whole lot better. Teams like the Detroit Lions may decide to wait. Philadelphia, if they don't believe in Jalen Hurts, and the beat goes on and on. So, you're going to find out that, hey, you know what? We'll give these guys, is Jared Goff going to be worth anything? Jalen Hurts, make or break years, prove it or lose it, and that kind of thing. So we'll go from there. And I think
next year's quarterback class is exactly why Miami didn't trade up in the draft, didn't use any of their 2023 picks next year. Because if Tua doesn't work out, they'll trade all 5 of those top round picks for a quarterback next year.
Very good. Yeah, I think we all agree that watch out for 2023. And I guess the only thing I can say about these 6 is I'm intrigued to see how they'll do. But a lot of people are going to be looking at the 2023 draft choice, and then they're going to be talking about it all over again. But meanwhile, I'll tell you what, Willie, great first act by you. We've really enjoyed there. And for a lot of you folks that wonder why I went off on a Delaware Blue Hens tangent, because you know what? I don't care where the reason why I really went that direction, in case you want to know, is I don't care where you find these quarterbacks at. And a lot of people don't realize that Delaware Blue Hens have really gone out there and produced a lot of interesting quarterbacks. So I will not stop talking about the Delaware Blue Hens anymore, because I don't care where these quarterbacks come from. As long as they're good, it is what it is. So with that said, Willie, we're going to now this portion of the show where everybody gets a chance to talk about where they're from. So Greg, go ahead. Let everyone know how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can get my articles on SouthFloridaTribune.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Gregory Fuchs.
All right, JB.
JB _ the program on Twitter. Sideline Sports every Tuesday night. Both sides of the coin tonight at 11:05. Here every Wednesday, and a bunch of other shows.
All right, Willie.
All right, I'm all over the place as well. Shakeback Media Group, BGC Sports Network, Warzone Sports Network, Shakeback Sports Show, hashtag Brothers of Baseball, Shakeback Sports OT, hashtag Family of Baseball, Extra Frames Podcast, Don't Jump the Podcast with Patrice, my wife, and myself, Ballers Report, and anything else out there that I can contribute to, I am more than happy to do so. www.shakebackmediagroup.com is where you can find us. I am on Twitter at Shakeback Media Group, as well as Instagram and our YouTube channel as well.
Well, with that matter, you're going to be on my platform for a while too. So just make sure you answer your text messages in a timely way, and I'll let you know the time and the place for which you'll do that. And last but not least, us. Okay, you go to www.southfloridatribune.com. That's our website. You can listen to the Sports Exchange if you want to listen to it on iHeartRadio. If that isn't good enough, you want to see it, go to South Florida Tribune. The South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, subscribe, and then you can get to see us shoot the breeze here. Email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and of course on Twitter at Tribune South. So programming note here on Friday night, Fire Up Michigan, our other show. We did Fire Up Florida with Greg, myself, Mark Mancini, debuted last week. Fire Up Michigan debuts on Friday night with myself, George Eichhorn, and Mark Mancini as well. And go to the South Florida Tribune and under WSFT broadcast, you'll find all the different shows we have on there. So really enjoyed talking about this with you guys. I thought all you guys were fantastic. I like to bring people on there. Not only do they bring great energy, but insight. And I can tell you right now, I feel that we covered this quarterback class very well. So meanwhile, Willie, look forward to working with you a lot more often. JB, as always, you're great. Greg, you do a great job. We appreciate the writing. Go ahead and look for Greg's articles on South Florida Tribune. He does an awesome job. So with that said, on behalf of Willie Epting Jr., JB Ellis, Greg Fuchs, my name is Scott Morgan, Rock the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Until the next time, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.